Morning. I think we're holding on Chavav Amud Aleph B'Shtar, right?
Yeah.
So, can we thank Hashem that we're able to learn every day? So we're learning. We should have the basic English. Starts like this. Well, in the Mishnah, we learned that there's something called Nechasim Sheish Lamachrayis. That's referring to land, realty. It has a achrayis, means it has a guarantee on it. It's not a guarantee on the land. It's a guarantee for people that borrowed money that they can get their money back because of the land. And then we also had Nechasim Shein Lamachrayis, which means personality. That was movable objects. So we said that this is acquired, the realty is acquired with Kesef Shtar and Chazaka, with money, a document, or with showing ownership. So we learned what's the source for money. Now we're holding what's the source for Shtar, what's the source for the document. For Shtar Minolan, it's like in the middle of 26a. How do you know that you can use a document to acquire land? Is it because it says in the pasuk, is it because it says that you should write a document and sign it and you should have witnesses testify? The problem is that verse was quoted before, and we said that document in that verse was just a shtar raya, it was just a proof. It wasn't the actual acquisition. You told me before, when we learned this Gemara before, when you were asking about money, he said, how do you know that money works? He said, because you're going to give money and it will acquire. That's the verse in Jeremiah. And afterwards it says, and you'll write a document. The Gemara said, maybe the writing of the document is the main thing. And we said, no, the writing of the document was just a proof. It was just like a receipt that you hold on to. But that wasn't the actual acquisition. Now you're telling me that verse is telling me that it's acquisition. So rather, we're going to need a different verse. It says, you'll take the bill of acquisition, the document of see, there's such a thing as a document of acquisition, that the document itself causes the acquisition. Amar Shmuel says, Lishanal B'Shtar Matana. Document really works that as an acquisition if it's a gift. Aval b'mecher, but if there was a sale, which means that there had to be a transfer of money, then the acquisition is not the document, it's the transfer of the money. Masav Rav Hamnuna has a question. How does it work a document? How does the acquisition work? If he writes either on a piece of paper, whatever that was back then, papyrus, right? Or on pottery shards. He writes, even though the paper or the pottery shards don't have any value. And what does it say? The seller writes a document, right? He says, my field is sold to you. My field is given to you. Then the field is given and sold. Now, 1 second. If you take a look at the wording of that, it doesn't only say given or gifted, it says sold. So what's Shmuel saying? The document shouldn't work for the sale. Shmuel says the document only works for a gift. But when we have what is the document, it says this, my field is sold to you. It means obviously it works for sales as well. So this is Rav Hamnuna was asking the question on Shmuel. Rav Hamnuna comes along and he answers it as well. What does he say? He says, that according to Shmuel, usually a sale would only be, a sale of property would only be with the transfer of money, because the owner would not be giving up the property until he receives the money, and just the document itself wouldn't do it. If it was a gift, that's a different story. But if it's a sale, he would only give it over when he receives the money. But over here, it's a special case. Over here, it's because he was selling the property because it was so bad, and he was willing to make the sale final even before he received the money, even with just the document. Okay, Ravashi says, "B'matana." We're talking about a gift, but so why do you write in the document, my field is given to you, my field is sold to you? Why do you say sold if it's just a gift? According to Ravashi, what he's trying to say is, I'm giving you this field as a gift. If it's such a good gift that even if someone should come along and take away the field from you, saying that he really owns that property, you can come back to me and I'll give you the money for it. In other words, it's a gift with responsibility. He's giving the field as a gift.
Right.
Tells him that if someone should come over to you and say that that field that you're on is not really yours,
Right.
it's really mine. So the giver of the gift is telling the recipient, he's telling him that don't worry about that. You can come back to me and I'll replace it with, I'll give you money, the value of what I'm giving you. Which means that that's really what would happen at a sale. At a sale, you would say, look, if you ever have any trouble, come back to me and I'll reimburse you. So here he's doing that for a gift. He's giving him a gift and he's telling him that'll reimburse him if there's any trouble.
For a gift, usually something you want.
Right.
The other guy should want it.
Right. He does want it. But if he would ever have any trouble, there's a guarantee on it.
You gotta cash it in.
Yeah. It's not really cash it in. It's if he loses it, I'll give you the money for it. How does he lose it? Because someone else comes and says that field is mine. So by a sale, that would be a normal thing, that the person would come back and get it. But by a gift, not. He'd say, look, I gave you the gift. I'm sorry. Whatever. But over here, he's not doing that. Here, he's saying, I gave you the gift, and you can come back and
in a sale, you sell something, they give you a receipt. Fine.
Right.
But if I give you a gift, no one writes a receipt for a gift.
Right. Sometimes you do get, they do give you a gift. They give you a gift receipt. And that if you already have that item, you can go back to the store and you can return that and get and exchange it. They don't tell you on the gift receipt, it doesn't say how much it's worth, but when you get there, you find out how much it's worth. Okay. So next thing, b'chazaka. You can also acquire a property with showing ownership. Minol, and how do we know this? Chizkiah says, Samar Kra, Shavu ba'arechem, and settle in the cities asher tafastem that you grabbed. But mati fastem, how did you grab it? Yeshiva, by settling it. I mean, how did it become yours? By showing ownership, by living there. Be Rabbi Shmuel Tana. It's taught in the yeshiva of Rabbi Shmuel, that you will inherit it and you will settle it. But Yerashtem, how did you inherit it? Yeshiva, by settling it. In other words, the actual showing ownership is the acquisition. We said that movable objects, which means personality, the way that you acquire it is by pulling it. Minalan, how do we know this? Because it says in the pasuk, someone will purchase something from his friend, or will buy something, or he'll acquire something from the hand of his friend. We're talking about something that's acquired from hand to hand, which is basically the way it's given over. You hand it over and it's pulled. How does, according to Rabbi Yechanan, that says that actually the way that something is sold, according to the Torah, is by giving the money, not through pulling it. So what are you telling me over here that it's through pulling it? It says Tana Takanta D'Rabbanan Ketani. Our Tana was teaching us that the rabbis instituted that instead of the sale being finalized with the money, it's being finalized with the taking of the item, with the pulling of the item. Now, why is that? Why did the rabbis make this institution? Well, there was a concern that if someone would acquire something after giving the money, before he takes it, he gives the money and it becomes his. But meanwhile, it's still in the seller's property. So if it's really his and still in the seller's property, he never took it to his house, there's a concern. If a fire would break out, the seller would not care to salvage that person's property. He'll just save his own thing. But if it's not really his, if it's not really the purchaser's, it's still the seller's, then he would take care of it. So we say, you know what, let's make sure that it doesn't become the purchaser's until the purchaser actually brings it into his property. Otherwise, you may just, the purchaser comes back. He says, where's the items that I bought from you? I gave you the money. Where is it? She says, oh, I forgot to tell you there was a fire and it got burnt. I'm so sorry for your loss. So we don't want that to happen. So we say that it's not really the purchaser's until he actually takes it into his property.
That example, is the seller a unpaid watchman?
He would be an unpaid watchman, right?
So he could say, was it stolen? Well, this has happened instead of a fire. Is he responsible?
Probably the same thing.
Oh, I'm so sorry. It got stolen.
I think so.
We really just sold it again to somebody else.
Yeah, well, we don't know. He has a claim it's a very dangerous situation. Like, Okay.
But on the internet, it's always that way. They charge your credit card, and a week later you get it in the mail. So, oh, it got lost in the mail. Or...
Right. But they do have today. They in most things they do have better return policies, and you can claim things because of this customer service. People get rated.
And usually, if the company has proof of delivery, like the responsibility is on us.
Oh, I never got it.
Yeah, if you say you never got it, but then they say they have a tracking number that says it was delivered to your door, then they're gonna tell you to call the shipping company.
It's the wrong door. Never got it.
Nowadays they have a picture of the door.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, now they have a picture of the door, and if the shipping company made a mistake, they're responsible for it.
Right.
Moral is, don't buy anything. Study the rules.
The Chasim Shen Lamachraya is talking about personality. So what did we learn? That the Chasim Shen Lamachrayas could be purchased together with property that does have achrayas. In other words, if you buy land, if you buy realty, what could come along with it is personality as well. Together with that purchase, it's called the kinyan agav. It's called agav means by means of. Through acquiring the land, you also acquire this by means of that. You also acquire the personality. How do we know this? Samar Chizkiah. Chizkiah says, the Makra says in the pasuk, "Bitin lemaviyah matanis im ari mitzuros b'Yehuda." Where's this talking about? This is in Children of Yeshaphat. This is in Divrei Yamim. He gave them gifts, and he gave them the gifts together with cities in Yehuda. That means he gave them land, and the gifts came along with him. So how did they acquire those gifts? They got the gifts because however they acquired the land, that's how they got the gifts. It means that the gifts, the personality could be acquired together with realty. You don't have to do individual acquisitions on each of those items. You could just acquire the land, however you want to acquire the land. That could be with money, document, or showing ownership. And then you'd automatically acquire all of the personalty. The Gemara is a question. Does the personality need to be piled up onto the land? Or can it be somewhere else? Rav Yosef says, Tashma. Come and listen. Rabbi Kiva says, Karka Kolshu Chayavis Bikurim. Even the smallest amount of land in Eretz Yisrael would automatically be chayav in Peya. That's the leaving the corners of the fields for the poor. Bikurim, that's first fruits. Prusbal, and you can now already write a prusbal. A prusbal would mean that if you owe someone money, if someone owes you money, or no, it would be principal has to belong to the borrower. The land has to belong to the borrower. It's considered like it's collected, right? That's the idea. So if the borrower has land, the smallest amount of land, the lender can already write a principal. And you can also acquire with the smallest amount of land, you can already acquire personalty. And if you say that the personalty needs to be piled up onto the actual land, what are you going to do with a little tiny piece of land? How many things can you pile up on that, right? You have a little, an inch by an inch. You acquired a piece of land, and you're gonna you wanted to acquire I don't know what car. Is a car considered personalty? Yeah, a car, a bicycle, something that a tent of some sort. That doesn't fit on it, right? But you have some machine, it doesn't fit on that little inch. So Tirgum Rav Shmuel Bar Bisna Kamid Rav Yisrael Shinotz B'Machat. He's talking about that there was a needle. You put the needle on it, and the needle you put the needle on that 1 inch, and that's good. Okay, so that's the answer for this. But however, Amalei Rabbi Yosef says to Rav Shmuel Bar Bisna, Kabastan, you're making me crazy. You're like harassing me. Ichbel Tana Lashminan Machat. The Tana has to go and elaborate in the Mishnah just to tell me that it acquired a needle. That's too much effort to go through just for a little needle. How do you know that on that needle there wasn't a pearl that was worth 1,000 zuz? Right? Just because it's a needle doesn't mean that it's valueless. We're still looking for a source of does the personality need to be piled up onto the realty? Amar Rabbi Lazar says, apparently there's a city called Madain. There was this person from Madain. Shahaya B'Yerushalayim. He was in Yerushalayim. And Shayilim Metalton Harvey. This Meduni, he had a lot of personality. And Ubikesh Litnam B'Matana. He wants to give them as a gift. Amrulai, they told him that ain't like the Kana Shiknam al Gabikarka. How can you give all it as a gift? What you'll do is you'll give the land, or you can even rent the land or lend the land, and then everything else would go to the recipient by means of the land, by means of how he acquires the land. So what did he do? Now the Gemara thinks that he went and he bought a base seller, an area the size of a coin of a seller. Sell as a coin. Next to Yerushalayim, the north side of this little piece of land is given to so and so, the recipient of the gift, and together with it goes 100 sheep and 100 barrels, probably wine or oil. And then he probably added in that in the south side it would be a gift to someone else. Well, Umes, person dies, and the Kim must devour. And they said that what he did was effective. Now, if you're going to say that the personality needs to be on top of the realty, what do you do with the area the size of a coin? You can't have 100 cattle on it. You can't have 100 barrels on it. Misavris, the Gemara's answers, do you think Beisela Sela Mamish? Do you think it was a coin? My Sela, what does it mean, the Sela? The Nafesh Tuva was very big. But my Karle Sela, so why do you call it a Sela? The Kashi Kasela. It was hard like a Sela. Now, different interpretations here. Sela could mean a rock. We'll just switch the whole translation. The Kashi was hard like a rock. Sela also means a rock. But also, Rashi says that it was hard like a rock. That meant that he bought it for cheap. It was a large piece of land he bought very cheap because it was very difficult to cultivate. It was Kashi Kasela.
Right. You want to buy that rock.
Okay. So we're still looking for a source if the personality needs to be on top of the property to be able to purchase it.
We built a cafe on the Hard Rock Cafe.
The best is saying it's Hard Rock Cafe. Is that the source of the Hard Rock Cafe?
Must be there.
What was that?
Prudential, some sort of rock. The sign of this insurance company is the Rock of Gibraltar.
Oh,
that's another hard rock.
Okay. Tashema, come and listen. Rav Yehuda Amar Rav, must be. Rav Yehuda says the name of Rav. That's not what you have there? Rav Yehuda is student of Rav. I just have an abbreviation. Ma'isa b'Nemechet Shechala b'Yerushalayim. Rabbi Eliezer, Barmila Bari Hari Karabanan. Okay, this we get like a parentheses before we get into the story. There was a person that was ill in Yerushalayim, and that would be the story according to Rabbi Elazar or Rabbi Eliezer. Or he was a healthy person, that would be the story according to the rabbis. Let's continue the story, and then I'll tell you why that was significant. He had a lot of personality, and he wants to give him as a gift. Okay, now why did we say that he was either ill or healthy? Because there's a machlekes between Rabbi Elazar and the Rabbanan. If a shchiv mira, if someone that's deathly ill, if he needs to make a kinyan when he gives the gift, we need an acquisition. The rabbis hold that you don't need an acquisition. Once the shchiv mira says that my possession should be given to so and so, it's as if it's already been given, and an acquisition has been done already. And according to Rabbi Elazar, you actually need to make an acquisition, even in a case where the person's on his deathbed. So if we're talking about over here where you need to make an acquisition, we're talking about either he could have been ill, and it would fit with the Rabbi Elazar, or he was healthy and it would fit with the Rabbanan. That's why we needed acquisition. If he's ill, according to the Rabbanan, then this whole continuation of the story doesn't matter, because you don't need an acquisition anyway. Oh yeah, yeah. That would follow the opinion of probably the Rabbanan, that whatever he said is done. Yeah.
Is an acquisition with a kanai? I mean, I'm asking what happens if the shchiv meirah gets better?
Oh, I think that depended on if he gave everything or if he left some things over. If he gave everything, then when he gets better, I think he takes it back. If he left some things over, that means that he was giving it even without that stipulation. I think that's what we learned. You pass the water over there. Fine. So he wants to give his personality as a gift. Machlekes if he's healthy or ill. So Amrulai probably is going to two different doctors. Amrulai, they said to him, "In like takana at shikna magabi karka." You see this story? I got this WhatsApp, the story of this guy, this thief, the car thief. Did you get this thing? I should post it. It's quite a story. It was. I'll post it. I won't kill it. I'll put it on the chat. Okay, so
Oh, you can tell a story.
no, I'll post it on the thing. It's this rabbi saying a story, and it's a cool story. But anyway, it's okay. So in like takana chikna magabi karka. They told him that the only way that you can give this over is if you give him land, and the person will acquire through the land, because by means of the land, right? Agav. So what did he do? It's the Talmudic way of talking. He went and he bought a quarter of a cow. Cow is 24 eggs. So what the size of 6 eggs of grain. Now, 6 eggs of grain, it doesn't mean 6 eggs of grain. It means the amount of land that you can plant 6 eggs worth of grain. So it'd be the small area.
This one here says like a square handbreadth.
One second, before you get to that. He didn't do the square handbreadth. And then he says, Tefach al Tefach leplaini. He says, I'll give a square handbreadth to so-and-so. First he purchased the piece of land. And from that land, he gave a square handbreadth to so-and-so. The imai, and together with that square handbreadth, Meyatzain will be 100 sheep, and Meyachavias, and 100 barrels. And then the person died. Well, Bekimu Chachamim Estivarav, and the sages said that it's considered a good gift. Okay. And if we say that we're looking for a source that either needs to not be piled on top of the land, or it could even be off the land. If you say it needs to be on the land, So tefach al tefach l'may chazi. How much can you put on a square handbreadth? Square handbreadth is only 4 by 4 inches. Well, here we're talking about that. He put the money on it. The money you can put on a square handbreadth, right? It's just the size of the bills. No, it would be the size of the coins. Just pile up the coins, pile them high, and he gives them the money. So it's probably like this as well, because the isal kadaitach mamish, if he was actually giving those items themselves, which means 100 sheep and 100 barrels, why didn't he give it to him with an exchange? You know how chalipin works. You can give a cloth to the seller, and then you acquire everything. So how do we know that it's not money? How do we know that it's not that and it is money rather? Because you can't do chalipin for money. You can't acquire money. Chalipin, which means an exchange, can only be done with 2 vessels or items, not with money. So if we're looking for a way for this person to be able to gift his items to someone else, and now we just switched the story to say that it wasn't actually items, it was money. So the solution that they came up with was that he gives them land. It says, I'll prove it to you that it wasn't really items, it was money. Because if it would have been items, then he didn't have to give land, he could have done chalipin. He could have said, why doesn't the recipient just give a cloth to the or any sort of vessel to the giver, to the giver, and then automatically everything would be acquired. The reason why we didn't do that is because it was coins, and you can't exchange coins for. It doesn't work like that. That you give a cloth and the coins automatically go to you. Coins don't work with chalipin. It's only with items, like the cow for the donkey. You pull the donkey, and then the cow automatically belongs to you, right? So it doesn't work like that with money. You can't pull the donkey, and then automatically the money goes to you. You have to give the money directly. You can't. Well, so it must be that we're talking about money, and that's why the way he was going to give it was through giving the land, and you can acquire money through land. So rather, what we're talking about money. The Gemara says, if it's money, why didn't you just give it to him? Why do you have to give him land to give him? Just give him the money, hand it to him in his hand. Ella, the last say we're talking about where the recipient isn't here. Gemara says, if the recipient isn't here, we can say also by chalipin that what's the reason why he didn't do the exchange is because he wasn't there. The recipient wasn't there. He needed someone else to make this kinyan. Gemara says, why doesn't he give it to him through someone else? Let someone else make the kinyan. It says, he didn't trust anyone else. Savar shamit v'achalu thinks maybe the other person, the other people that were there, would start spending the money instead of or using the items, because now we just switched. It doesn't have to be money. But then how would it get on the property? We're talking about that it must have been money because we're talking about it's on the property. We think that he's going to spend it. So then why do you say there's no solution? There is a solution. He just didn't trust anyone. There is a solution. It says in this way that he doesn't trust anyone. There was no solution. The only way to do it without trusting anyone would be to give it with property. Now, if the person's not there, how does he give it to him, the property? How does he acquire the property? So I think the way it could work is that he can give a document. I didn't see this in the commentaries, but I think he can give a document to a third person and say, acquire this on behalf of so-and-so. And then he's not actually handing the money to this other person that he doesn't trust. He's handing a document that the person should acquire it on behalf of so-and-so. And so the money was never in this person's hands. And that could be, that's what I'm thinking is the pshat. Unless you have a clear something on one of the notes. Okay. We still don't have a proof if the personality needs to be on the property or not. We're talking now that maybe it's talking about that it actually is on the property and we're dealing with coins. we don't have real proof. Well, Tashima, come listen. My Ram Gamliel is Kedim Shebayim Basfina. Ram Gamliel and the elders were coming on a boat. There's a lot of boat stories in the Gemara. So, Ram Gamliel is a Kedim. Ram Gamliel says to the elders, Ram Gamliel had a little bit of a problem. He says that he had untithed produce back at home, and he didn't want to leave it there because the rule is that you always trust someone that's a chaver, that they never would have left without their meiser being fixed. Turns out he left and his meiser wasn't fixed, so he needed to fix it when he wasn't home. How does he fix it when he's not there to be able to do the separating? So he says to the elders, he says, Isa Shani Yasalamet, 1/10 that I'm going to measure out when I get back home, Nasan Yeshua, that should be given to Yeshua. Yeshua is Rabbi Yeshua ben Hanani, was a Levi, and he's giving him his meiser, which goes to the Levi. Apparently, it went to the Levi. Remember, it stopped going to the Levi, but I guess it goes back to the Levi. It went back when they came back from Golas Bavel. They stopped giving meiser to the Leviim because they didn't come back. There was some sort of punishment on it. But anyway, apparently after that time, they did give to the Leviim. Yeah, we have a source where he tried to help Rabbi Yochanan ben Gudgada close the doors, and he says, "No, you're not there's two jobs of the Levi. One is to be the doorman, or to be the guard by the door. The other one is to be a singer." He says, "You're one of the singers. You're not one of the doormen. You're not allowed to switch that job." Told him that you could be forfeiting your life if you switch the job. That's what he told Rabbi Shua ben Hanani. We have another source. Rabbi Shua ben Hanani was in the time of the Beis Hamikdash. He was there, and by the simple space of Sheva, we have some information. Anyway, so he's giving his meiser to Rabbi Yeshua. There's another tithe, Shani Yasalam, that I'm going to measure out. Nasan Akiva ben Yosef should be given to Rabbi Akiva. His name was Akiva ben Yosef. That he should acquire it on behalf of the Aniyim. Well, Rabbi Akiva ben Yosef was a Gabbai Tzedakah. He was a collector for the poor, and he would give the money to the poor. And the area, that's the main point over here, the area where this produce is should be rented to Rabbi Yeshua and should be rented to Rabbi Akiva. Shmamina, why is he renting him that property in order to acquire it? Because it needs to be on the property in order to acquire it. You see, here's our answer. It needs to be on mamish on the property. The Gemara says, "Shani Hasam ke'echad le'luchshachinu." Maybe he's renting him the property because he doesn't want to bother. He doesn't want to bother Rabbi Shua ben Hanani and Rabbi Akiva that they should have to move it afterwards. So he rents him the whole property as storage. You'll take care of it later. Around 27A. Okay, go ahead.
Earlier on, we learned something about buying an elephant or something. Yeah. All right. So several years ago,
you bought an elephant?
But several years ago, in Scotland, there was a locality that wanted to make money. They had a lot of land, but they had money. So they were selling, this is true, you can look it up on Google. So you could buy 1 square foot of land in their reserves. And if you bought it was less than $50, maybe it was back then $18 or whatever, you not only owned the 1 square foot of land, but you got the title lord or lady if you're a man or woman. So my question, and it was legitimate, this and that, not that you can do anything with that piece of land. It's still they're making a lot of money on it because people, once you have the lord title, you can use it in certain places like for perks. Anyway, so here's the question. If the person bought that 1 square, this has to do with your needle and pearl, the 1 square foot piece of land, and there was a little circus thing on it that the elephants would turn around on, and the elephant was standing on this little miniature thing, circular stuff, would he acquire the elephant along with the 1 square foot of land?
Because it was only 1 foot of the elephant?
No, the whole elephant.
So they would acquire it, of course.
You get the whole elephant with the 1 square foot of land. No, because you get an example of a needle on a little piece of land. I mean, this mamish is something that they sell. I don't know that there are elephants in Scotland, but I just was curious. I thought it was real. What if it was an Eved and he bought it? All right, because he's an Eved that was working on the side, had extra money that he owned.
Which Eved works on the side?
Didn't we have a situation of an Eved
That he works for every other day. That was half free.
So he was and made money, bought the piece of land, and became a lord. He's free man. How could he automatically lose his evidence? It's a weird story. Sorry, let's go back to learning.
Okay.
It's too much.
We have a half.
Too much coffee to wake up after 3 hours.
He's half Eved and half Lord. Okay.
Only at the 5:30.
27:8.
Tashima. So come and listen. We're still looking for a source that does the personality need to be on the realty. Rava Bar Yitzchak, Rav. Rava Bar Yitzchak says the name of Rav Shnei saying there's two laws of documents. Zachu besadazu leplaini v'kisvu lo yashtar. Someone says, acquire this field for so and so and write a document for him as a proof. Then the guy decides to change his mind. He's allowed to change his mind. It's too late on the acquisition because he already told him to acquire it on his behalf. But the document, he can say, I don't want him to have that proof. All right. But if he says, on condition that you write him the star, not just and write him the star, acquire it, and on condition that you write him the star, then because he can go back on the writing of the document, he can also go back on the field. He only told him to acquire it together with the document. Reb Chia bar Ravin Amar Rav Huna. Reb Chia bar Ravin says in the name of Rav Huna that Shleisha Star is saying there's actually 3 rules of documents. Trei Hadamran, 2 of them you already said. If you write a document, acquire it and write it, and then write a document, or acquire it on condition they write. And then another one, Idach, in Kadam Meicher v'Kasal Star. If the seller went and wrote the document, just like we've learned, that the scribe can write a document for the seller even though the purchaser isn't there yet. He can have the document ready. Once he acquires the land, he can acquire the document wherever it is. You see, how does he acquire the document? He's acquiring the document by means of the land. How do we said that realty can acquire personality, but where was the document? It wasn't on the land; it was wherever it is. It's the proof that it doesn't need to be on the land to acquire it. The Gemara says that's cute, but it doesn't really work. The Shani Shtar, Dafsir Daru, the document is like the reins of the land. So that's different. I'm not talking about something else, some other thing. You wanted to buy a piano or something that was on the land. That maybe has to be actually on the land. But the document is like the handle to the land. So that comes along together with the land, even if it's not really there. Okay. When it says, because we start with chazaka. But the Mishnah, our Mishnah is used as a support for that. And then we say that, you see, this is exactly a case of personality being acquired together with realty, which means that it's not just the document, it's all cases. It could be acquired wherever they are. We see clearly that it doesn't need to be on the land. If you acquire the land, you can acquire any other personality that are coming from that giver, from that seller or whatever, together with this realty.
So when Bnei Yisrael acquired Eretz Yisrael, they automatically acquired the Torah. Or was it that when they acquired the Torah, they automatically acquired Eretz Yisrael, even though they weren't there? Strange question, but
I think when Abraham walked on the land, that was supposed to be his way of acquiring. The way they conquered the land was with the Torah. They went around with the Torah, and that was how they conquered the land. How did they acquire it? First, they had to divide it up. The divide it up, and then each one had to settle it. Right? I'm not sure what the actual acquisition was. When you conquer in battle, so then you just show ownership and it becomes yours.
It's like staking.
Yeah. Put the flag in. Okay. The Boilu, they have a question. Does the person need to tell him, acquire the land and acquire the personality together with it? Does he need to make that statement clearly? Tashema diktani kolhani. Come in here, we taught a whole bunch of brises in the last page where he said, and together with it will be 100 sheep or 100 this, 100 barrels. Like Tani Agav, and he didn't say acquire it by means of, he just said together with it. So the Gemara says, Hachinami, I'm sorry, 1 second. Did he tell him acquire? He just said together with it. He didn't even use the word acquire. Obviously, you have to add that in. You know, we weren't saying all the details of the story, but you have to add in that he told him to acquire it. Well, we have to add something in. Maybe he also has to add in by means of. Acquire it and by means of the land. The halacha is and it doesn't need to be on the field itself. But however, agav ukani beinan, but he does need to tell him that he should acquire it by means of, and also has to tell him that he should acquire it. Can he sell the field with an acquisition, and together with that would come along a gift of the personality? So it's two different modes of getting this. The realty was through a sale, and the personality was through a gift. Would that work? So Tashima, come and listen. Look, we have a clear. I think it's a Mishnah. The Mishnah says that Rabbi Gamliel was on the boat and he was giving his meiser to Rabbi Yeshua, and he says that the meiser that I'm going to measure out should be given to Rabbi Yeshua. And how is it going to be given to him? Well, I'm renting to him the land that the grain was on. Well, if that's the case, he's renting the land. Renting is just like selling. It's just selling it for a smaller amount of time, right? He's renting it. So you see that the realty could go through a sale, and the personality could go through a gift, right? Very interesting. The Gemara has another question. Can you be making an acquisition for someone else through one person acquiring the field, and the personality should be going to a third person? Gemara says we have a proof for that as well. Tashima, come and listen. 1/10 should be given. We're talking about that the Meiser that year was not taken to Yerushalayim, and that Meiser that year was given to the poor. It was the 3rd year or the 6th year. So he says that 1/10 should be given to Akiva ben Yosef, so that he should acquire it on behalf of the poor. And how should he do that? The land was rented to him. What do we see? That he gets the land, and the personality goes to the poor. So you can do this. One person gets the land, and he's acquiring on behalf of someone else the personality. Was Rabbi Gamliel was his friend, and he was talking. So he's calling him Akiva ben Yosef. So the Gemara says, "My muskar." Sorry.
Pretty cool. First time basis.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kobe.
Said Rav Cook when his mother passed away. He said he cried and he cried. Anyway, they said, what's going on? It's like more than. He said, "There's no one left in the world that's going to call me Abramala." Okay.
Yeah,
So,
can relate.
So my muskar, what does it mean that he rented it? Muskar l'maiser. We have a way out of this. You know what we can do? We say that not that Rabbi Akiva was renting the land for himself, and via him renting that land for himself, the maiser goes to the aniyim, and it gets that complicated. No, he was renting the land for the aniyim, and the maiser that's on it goes to the aniyim. Okay, it's easy. We can say it a little different as well. Shani Rabbi Akiva the Adanimu. It could have been that it was really Rabbi Akiva renting it, and Rabbi Akiva was getting the meiser, but it doesn't matter because Rabbi Akiva is the hand of the meiser because he's considered the gavai tzedakah. He's the caretaker of this fund. So therefore, when it goes to him, it's already like it went to the aniyim, and that's good enough. Amar Rava says to make kulam, to make kulam talking about over here that if you want to acquire something by means of the karka, by means of realty, you have to have paid for everything that you want to acquire. And then how do you acquire it? Through the realty. But if you only paid for part of it, then you're only going to acquire the part that you paid for. Tani Kavasei de Rava, we have a proof for what Rava said. It says like this. Money is more valuable than a document. Is more powerful. And the document is more powerful than the money. They each have one thing that makes them more powerful than the other. What's the more power of the money? Because with money you can redeem things that were consecrated, and you can also redeem Ma'aser Sheni to take it to Yerushalayim. It says you need actual money. You can't just use a document. You can write a document on that. But you can't use the document. Cash is king. Is that what they say? And the document is more powerful. Because a document could do a divorce, and money can't do a divorce. So you see, the document is more powerful. And they're both more powerful than chazaka. Chazaka is showing ownership. And chazaka is more powerful than both of them. Each one has some aspect that makes them more powerful. They're both more powerful. That means the document and the money. Both of them could acquire an Eved Ivri. But the showing ownership of the Eved Ivri doesn't acquire. By an Eved Kanani, I think there was that. What were the ways of acquiring an Eved Kanani? The Mishnah we had before. Kesef Shtar and Chazaka. But by the Eved Ivri, that was a Mishnah even before that, that was just Kesef and Shtar. Right?
The way it's written is very similar to Pirkei Avos when they're comparing the four rabbis. You know, weighing them on the scale, but this one against these three, but this one, and they keep on showing.
Yeah. Eved Ivri Nickname Kesef and Shtar. That's what it says.
What if they digitize them? What happens in that world? It's interesting.
Yeah.
This is the power of money. You have a system coming in various countries. There's no money. Is that a primitive thing, or is that just...
Like Bitcoin?
No.
Bitcoin's nothing.
There are certain halachas that because we use a currency, it changes the halacha. Certain things in laws of interest. If you take wheat, then you want to give back wheat. But it's possible that the value of the wheat changed, and then it's going to be interest because based on you giving the same bushel, but then it was worth $100. Now it's worth $120 or something. So you're actually giving back interest. So that's because we have a currency. There's a Chazon Ish somewhere that discusses what would be if we were go back to the bartering. Then it wouldn't. A bushel would be a bushel. It wouldn't change like that. Right? It wouldn't change because it wouldn't convert into coins.
Okay.
So if you borrowed a bushel, you give back a bushel. Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Okay, but this is a system where there is still prices and speculation and all that. But it's just that the money supply is controlled by this card that you have. They might not permit redemption.
Right. We won't be able to redeem. We'll have to still have coins, even though it's all going to be in a fingerprint. You want to pay, you just go like that. No. But when Mashiach comes, right? We enter. This can be by then. It only can be credit cards. Just be a fingerprint.
When you go in Whole Foods, they have.
Yeah, they have a
palm
palm print, right? Right.
print.
But when it comes to the redeeming the Ma'aser Sheni, we're still going to need coins. You'll have to buy it in an antique shop. Oh yeah. Okay.
Watch what you say.
Today's the yahrzeit of the Chavetz Chaim. No lashon hara today, right? But it's my one day.
It's a good time to start.
All right.
First day of slippers.
Okay. They say I don't speak lashon hara, but I can tell you who does. Okay. So where are we holding? Mashinga b'chazaka. An avidivity isn't acquired with chazaka. Yafika chazaka, a chazaka, the showing ownership is stronger than money and the document. Shachazaka, when it comes to showing ownership, machala yasasad is best in Medinas. Someone sells 10 fields in 10 different countries. Given checks like bachaz bam kanakulam, he acquires all of them. All you have to do is show ownership on one, and you get them all. It's like a chain of something. You make an acquisition into one of them. When do we say this? That's if the money was given for all of them. And that's exactly what Rava said, that it only works if the money was given for all of them. But if he didn't give him money for all of them, like we would only acquire exactly the amount that he gave, which was what Rava said. Let's go further. And this supports what Shmuel says. Shmuel taught, Shmuel said that if you want to make if you make an acquisition in one of 10 fields, so you acquire all of them, right? If that's what you were being given or sold or bought or whatever. Amar Rav Acha Breder Rav Ika says, Teda. I'll prove it to you. Let's say there's a person that's buying an animal, or animals, buying, let's say, 10 animals, and the owner gives him the reins of 10 animals. They're all held together into one knot. He says, here's the. So when he hands him over the reins, that's an acquisition, right? And he says, acquire it. Maybe he has to pull it or whatever. Milay doesn't he acquire all 10? Well, he has all 10 in his hands. Amalei mi dummy. That's not a proof. Over there, he's holding all 10 ropes from the animals, so that's why he's acquiring it. Here he's not holding all 10 fields. He only made an acquisition in one of them. He set up a fence on one field. Well, how does he acquire all of them? Ikadamri, there are those that said the opposite. Some said like this. I'll prove it to you that he doesn't acquire. Let's say he hands him the reins of 10 animals and he says, acquire this one. Would he acquire all the other ones? He'd only acquire one of them. So that's a proof that if you only acquire one of them, over here he's only acquiring one of the fields. Why is he acquiring all of them? It says, me, dummy, how can you compare? You can't compare that either because each one of those animals is a separate entity. But over here, every piece of land is all really one mass. I don't know about the plate tectonics. It's on a different plate, but it's all part of one earth. So we should say that you make acquisition in one. It's attached through the maybe there's other things in the middle, but it's still attached.
It's two different things. The animals are movable.
Right.
The fields are not.
Right. He's telling him that if you make an acquisition in one animal, then you shouldn't acquire the other animals. And that the same thing should be.
You pull them all.
No, let's say he tells him,
Animals, that's why
he says, acquire only this one. Right. Yeah. Okay. Now the Gemara says, you can make what's called a Gilgal Shvua. Usually you don't swear for realty. Someone claims that this something, you owe me this, or this is mine, or something, and you admit to half of it. You don't make usually a Maida B'miktas, you admit to half, you have to swear. But by realty, you don't swear. However, if there was an obligation to swear because of personality, movable items, so then we can roll over the shvua and to include in it also, which is minatayra. You can also you can extend the shvua, broaden it over to also like an umbrella. You can put it under the same shvua, and you can swear about the realty as well. Even though normal, you won't just swear about the realty alone, but under this other larger shvua, of this umbrella shvua of personality. It says you like attach the realty to swear together with the personality. What's our source in the Torah that there's such a concept of Gilgal Shvua? Well, Shenemar quotes a verse. It says, "Ramra Isha Amen Amen." By the Saita, the woman says, "Amen" and "Amen." They administer an oath to her that she's clean she hasn't sinned, and she says, "Amen, Amen." Well, what's the big deal?
Amen for what? For this guy,
exactly. That's this Gemara. And Tanan, and it was taught in a Mishnah. Almahi Aimeres Amin Amin. What is she saying? Amin Amin. Right? Amin Allah Allah. Amin Allah Shvua. She's accepting the curse. She's accepting the oath. Amin Imi Yishzeh. Amin Imi Yishacher. She's accepting that she didn't commit adultery with this person that she's being accused of. And also, there was no one else that she committed adultery with, which is maybe the husband doesn't even know about, right? Amin Shalei Satisi, she's agreeing that she didn't commit adultery, Arusa, when she was betrothed, in Asua, when she was married, Shemeres Yavam, when she was waiting for the Yavam to marry Ukunusa, or after she was married. Okay. So she's adding in all these other oaths, even though that wasn't the original oath. What are you talking about? That she's swearing that she didn't commit adultery as a Arusa. What's the story? The kanila. If you say that he warned her when she was Arusa, when she was betrothed, and now she's still betrothed and he wants her to drink. That's the case. But we have a Mishnah, that a betrothed woman doesn't drink. Doesn't drink the sota water. My timer. What's the reason for that? Because it says if she committed adultery under her husband, which means after she was already married. She's not under her husband yet. She's more like engaged, but she's not under the husband. Ella the kanila shiarusa. Rather, he warned her when she was betrothed, Vinistra, and she was secluded, shiarusa, when she was betrothed, and now he's bringing her to drink after the marriage.
Wow.
Married her anyway.
Yeah.
Even though she was secluded beforehand. The Gemara says, Mi badki la maya. Will the water examine her? It shouldn't really work because we have a rule. When does the water examine the woman? Only if the husband is perfectly clean. But over here, the husband is not perfectly clean because he married a woman that he was forbidden to, because she was already secluded. If he lives with her, then the waters don't work anymore. It must mean that he warns her after she's married, and she was secluded after she's married. It only works that way, right? After the marriage, and she was warned, and then she was secluded, and then we say, now once we're at it, that we're making a shvua, that you're taking an oath that you didn't commit adultery. Let's not go back and let's find out if you committed adultery back then. When the thing, how do you get that? That's through Gilgal. That's talking about that you have this like umbrella. Once you have an oath, you can bring in other things under the same umbrella.
At the time she was betrothed, if she had done what she wasn't supposed to do, that doesn't make her married to someone, that just makes her over an Aveira of
Right,
being
right,
zoned.
right.
That doesn't, does that actually prohibit her from marrying the guy? Why? Because she's a zona?
Well, if he's a Kohen, it's because of
But if he's not.
but otherwise, it's a problem of she becomes forbidden to her husband. She has a.
But she's not married.
But willing? No, she is married. Betrothed is married.
Oh, because.
If she was raped, it wouldn't be like that. But if she was willing, she becomes forbidden to her husband. We'd need proof. We wouldn't trust her. We'd need proof, right? Okay, Ashkechan Saita. We find that there's a concept of Gilgal Shua, of this umbrella, where you can bring in other things by Saita di Surah.
Gilgal Neshama, the woman comes back then, in the next one he marries.
Ramesha told me about this thing. Milsa de Bedichas or something. And it's this like joke that they sent to the Daf Yomi. Anyway, pretty lousy jokes. But yesterday they said the joke that said this older widow and widower were dating for 3 years, and they said finally he decides he's going to propose. So he proposes to be married. She says yes. Anyway, the next morning wakes up. He can't remember if she said yes or not. So he calls her up. He's embarrassed. He said, "Remember we spoke last night. I can't remember what the answer." He said, "Oh, it's so good you called because I remember I said yes to someone, but I can't remember who it was." Okay. So Ashkechan Saita di Surah. How do we know? I'm sorry? It's not funny, no. Not if it's true. How do we know that the same thing applies to monetary law? We just did a ritual law. Well, Saitas will consider it ritual law, or prohibition law of marriage. But what about money? How do you know you do Gilgal Shua for money? Well, Tanad Be Rabbi Shmuel Kal V'Chaimer. Tanad Be Rabbi Shmuel says that we can learn it from a fortiori. Kal V'Chaimer. It says, when it comes to a Saita, this adulterous woman, you can't make her take an oath just with one witness. You have to have the two witnesses that saw her secluded, or there was some machlekes there, but there needed to be two witnesses as part of the process, right? However, nevertheless, megalgalin, you can still do this umbrella type shua. You can roll it over onto other things. Mamain, when it comes to money, that you can claim with one witness, and one witness, and when it comes to money, requires an oath. Like two witnesses would be a done deal, but one witness makes the person swear. In addition, megalgalin, see, it's much stricter when it comes to oath. It's not stricter. It's much more easy to get an oath out of for money than it is by the saita. And by the saita, you have the gilgal shua, then for sure by money. Umar says, okay, ashkechan bevadai. That's only when you have a real claim. That will make gilgal shua. But however, besafik minalan, let's say there's a doubt. Can you do that? Do a gilgal over there, shua as well. What is a doubt? A doubt is when you have partners or something that are dividing things and you don't know what is this, what is that. There's no real claim. No one has a claim on. I'm definite about what you owe me. Right? It's just they have to make an oath about what the situation is. Well, Tanya Reb Shimon, we have a brisa for this. Reb Shimon ben Yochai, is that correct? Reb Shimon ben Yochai? I just have an abbreviation.
Yeah.
Reb Shimon ben Yochai says, we have an oath that's taken outside of the Beis Hamikdash, and we have an oath that's taken in the Beis Hamikdash. Just like the oath that's taken inside the Beis Hamikdash. So we have a doubt is also considered like a definite. Why? Because the saita is the doubt, and we make her make a shvua. We'll make a doubt just like a definite. Okay, good. So it's even by a doubt we can also do a gilgal shvua, even when that type of oath where it's like partners or something like that. Ad heichen gilgul shvur. How far does it go? What's the Gemara asking? How far can you extend this gilgul shvur? To what extent can you make him take an oath? Amar Rabbi Yehuda Marav says, you can actually tell the person, any person that wants to make him that he has to swear, you can say, okay, now, and also include in that you're not my servant. Sounds a little degrading, right? You're not my slave. Gemara says, that's what you're going to say? If some person says something like that, we should put him in chayrim. The Tanya was taught in a brisa, someone calls his friend a slave, he should be put in chayrim. Mamzer, if he calls him a mamzer, you should give him malchus. Rasha, if he calls him wicked, Yerdi Malachayev, then at least he's allowed to hate him. But why are you telling over here that you can make him now swear that he's not a slave? Basically, you're calling him a slave. Rava says, he's saying, swear to me not that you're a non-Jewish slave. Swear to me that you're not my Jewish slave, which basically means you owed me money and you couldn't pay it. And so the Gemara says, well, that's actually a real claim. Obviously, he owes him money. If he's claiming that he's his Jewish slave, then that's a regular monetary claim. Gemara says, it's not actually a monetary claim. Rava held that it's not just work that needs to be done for the Eved Ivri, but that the master of the Eved Ivri actually owns his body. And he actually owns him like a slave. So 1 second. That you're not supposed to swear on. That would be, well, that you would only swear on through Gilgal, but that would be exactly the same case as karka, as realty, which you don't make an oath unless it goes under the umbrella of a different oath. And why do you have to tell me another statement if we already know that it works for karka? Where it says Mao the time, I could have thought that karka who davdi and shindim is avdi mitzina, that I can make an oath about land, because people do sell land without everyone knowing about it. They sell property. Unless they call it, if it was sold, then we don't have a rumor, and so the only way to know is to administer an oath. But when it comes to a slave, someone sold as a slave, if he really was sold, then there would have been a rumor. And since there's no rumor, maybe we should not administer an oath. No rumor, that's a proof that it's not true. And no oaths over here. Mashmalan, that he can still make an oath like that, administer that oath. Okay. We're really supposed to do the next page, but I didn't look at it yet, so I don't want to. Let's leave it. Let's leave it over here. On the outside, right?